Board Tracers of Elaine Baker and Eric Stein members. Sue Noyce, our administrator, and my last name just escaped. Murphy, I'm sorry. He's from the planning board. And so we're going to get started, and first on the agenda is Cricket Lane LLC for 55R Pearson Drive. The submittal of a comprehensive permit application for the village at Cricket Lane. So if you want to come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Douglas Deshane. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Deshane & Farrell in Westford, Massachusetts, and we represent Cricket Lane LLC. Cricket Lane is proposing a comprehensive permit project at 55 Rear Pearson Drive. We have initially applied for site eligibility through Mass Housing. We have received that site eligibility in December of last year, and we have since that time been working to put together an application meeting your requirements. We have provided you that application, which looks like this, binder.
It's all over there.
And
Okay, so we did receive everything?
I have brought the 25 copies, I believe. That was
Yeah, I have counted 25
yeah.
binders. I haven't counted the maps yet, but the 25 binders are there.
But I can assure you that everything's there, and so I'm here this evening to officially submit it, if the board would so allow.
Okay. So do we have to make a motion on that, Sue?
I would.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the application?
I'll make a motion to accept the application.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much, and I guess I just have one question
Sure.
in parting, and that is, will I wait to hear from you as to scheduling, or, okay? I look forward to that, and lastly, I know we provided a client copy of our application.
Yeah, I need to.
Will you be able to
I
stamp
will
that
stamp
for us?
that, and I'll scan it over to somebody.
Oh, that'd be
if
wonderful.
That works.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I have Tricia's information, so I can probably do that.
Tricia's
Okay.
she runs the office.
All right. Very good.
Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to working with
Just
you.
1 second, Bill.
We typically meet every third Thursday,
Oh, okay, great.
so that's a schedule we'd like to try to stick to.
Works
Just
for us.
if we need to meet or something,
Yeah.
we'll see if that fits in.
No, we can accommodate whatever your typical schedule is. Thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you.
We want to move on to the continuation with Ellen and Brian.
Which one is, all right, let's see, public hearings. Ellen and Brian Bowie of 16 Plum Island Boulevard, continued hearing. The applicant is requesting a finding for release from section 97-4D of the Newbury zoning bylaws, as the proposed construction will increase both the height and coverage for the lot/property located at Assessor's Map U02-0-124.
Come on up.
Let me bring some chairs up. Sorry about that. I did receive a letter from an abutter that I need to read for the record on this particular application, so just let me know when you would like me to do that.
I want you to read it now.
Okay.
We'll get it out of the way, and
All right.
and they can.
All right, so the letter is dated February 10th. It's from Heather Sinton at 18 and 18R Plum Island Boulevard. She is writing to us in opposition to the proposed plan to demolish the existing structure and build a new structure on 16 Plum Island Boulevard. Her opposition arises around the height and proposed rooftop deck of the proposed new structure, which the applicant states is a change to an existing structure on the special permit application. This is a demolition. The structure to be demolished is a one-story bungalow, 16 feet in height. The proposed new structure is 34.7 feet in height with a rooftop deck on top of it. It seems clear to me in my novice reading of 97.4 that it is the intent of the PIOD to limit the height of the structures when they are altered or demolished and reconstructed to the height of the structure being altered or demolished. I find that language twice under section 97D5C as of right changes and 97.4D5D. Catastrophe or demolish, rebuilding as a right, given that I do not know why we would not abide by these rules. I also do understand from my reading that this board has the right to go against the intent of the two rules above if it is deemed not detrimental to the neighborhood or PIOD. I have looked everywhere in the glossary of terms and see no definition for neighborhood. I am in a butter twice, as I am the legal owner of two separate pieces of property that are affected by this decision. I consider this new construction to be detrimental to my neighborhood. I can see no good reason for superseding the intent of the PIOD other than to give the applicant Ocean View property when he didn't actually purchase Ocean View property. If this had no ill impact on anyone, that would be fine, but it does. If agreed to, this construction would absolutely destroy any privacy that they will have on their own property. It will be like living in a fishbowl, and I don't know why in a balancing of Ocean View versus privacy doesn't win. I also extremely object to the fact that the roof access has window going up the side of the house. I don't see why windows are necessary to get to the roof. Why do they need them on the side that faces my house? I also do not understand why we are not calling the enclosed rooftop access what it is, a room. I do know that there are technical ways to get around, not including this in the FAR calculation, but I think this goes beyond the intent of the PIOD as well. I don't quite know the word, but it seems wrong for me not to consider a rooftop deck as a floor area for the purposes of calculating the ratio. This deck, especially given its size, would definitely be used as a floor when they are sitting up on it with their tables and chairs. I am not opposed to anybody demolishing property and rebuilding it, but it should be done within the confines of the rules. I am just saying that the rooftop deck with enclosed access goes way beyond what is appropriate for the neighborhood, given the structure that it is replacing. I am asking that the height of the project be cut down and the rooftop access and rooftop deck be disallowed. Lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that I am deeply concerned with the fact that there are proposed grading changes to the property to level out the driveway. I am also concerned with the installation of pilings, which I understand have to go down to the hard pack. My house was built in 1935, and my first floor living space is below grade in the basement. I am concerned with foundation cracking, and I am also concerned with water displacement caused by changes in grading and the pile driving. I believe there is an aquifer that runs underground near number 20. From my attendance at your meetings, I hear a lot of conversations involving measurements and ratios, but not a lot about the impact of the construction could have on the actual island itself. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Heather Sinton.
Glad you read that, not me. Okay. All right, you're back.
Yep, no, we're all set. Hopefully everything is all set. As you know, what we're proposing is 100% in compliance with the zoning bylaws. The questions that were asked, we provided information for clarification. I appreciate concerns of abutters. We did, as far as notifying people, we did read legal ads. We sent out notifications to 66 different parties. We said 3 legal ads, 66 notifications, and it appears that whoever this woman is, has a concern that things being done properly, and another abutter had a concern about his view. She made mention in her letter that not including the so-called room, the roof access, that was included in the floor to area ratio, the 67 square feet, and as was approved in prior filings, we did make it conforming, and it's not a habitable space, so identified it. So if there are any other questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Eric?
Just thinking for a minute.
Elaine? Does anybody in the audience have any comments? Yes?
And I wrote the letter, so.
Oh, okay.
But my question is, why, I looked at the definition of a story, and I also do not understand why that rooftop access is not considered a third story, since it has a floor and it has a roof.
Right. It's a thing we struggle with all of these that want to have rooftop decks. And I guess in the past, what we've approved has been an uninhabitable, I'm not going to call it a room, but access. So that means it's not heated, the size of it doesn't qualify for a room, and the height of the ceiling doesn't qualify as a room. So it's just an, I guess, an access point.
But it is a story. If you read the definition of story, it's a story.
Yeah. I guess, you know, that's...
And the permit, that specifically in the reasons for applying for the permit, that story point is not in his application.
I guess the former building inspector and decisions we've made have not included that as a story because it's not a livable area. That's, you know, the best way, that's the best way I can explain it.
But the definition of story, if you read the glossary, that does not state anything about it being a living area. It states whether it has a floor or it has a roof.
Well, I guess that's just the way it's been interpreted previously. We do struggle with the rooftop decks, and there's nothing that says that an applicant can't have one. But it does certainly add to the mass of the building. We do understand that. Do you want to add something?
Well, in the calculation of the FAR, the deck is not counted in this calculation.
Right.
And it says here that the footprint shall mean the total square footage with the outside most dimensions of a structure or building, including decks, porches, and staircases without deduction for hallways, stairs, columns, and other grade features. That's the footprint.
Right.
So,
Could you also read the definition of story?
in a minute.
And I don't know, while Eric's looking for what his talking point is, if you look, you mentioned FAR. FAR is livable space under a roof. So when you're talking about the deck not being counted, it shouldn't be counted. The same as a deck on the outside on the first story is not counted as FAR, it's counted as footprint.
That's right. You've got two basements outside the envelope shall not be counted as gross floor area. So that's floor area as it relates to FAR. Lot coverage is within the footprint.
Right.
So I guess I'm going through checking of the basements. Height, building, dimension in feet as measured from the mean level of the established grade at the building to the mean height of the highest roof. That's the definition of a roof.
I don't have my bylaws here, but what's the definition of the story that she's referring to?
Story, a portion of the building
there you go.
including between the upper surface of the floor and the upper surface of the floor or roof next above, including attics that have no habitable area and are used solely for the storage and to house mechanical equipment. Intermediate levels such as mezzanines, lofts, and penthouses shall be counted as a story above grade. Any story having its finished floor surface entirely above grade except at the basement shall be considered a story above grade where the finished surface of the floor above the basement is, and then it's more than 6 feet above grade, and it goes to define how the I'll just read them all. More than 6 feet above the finished grade level for more than 50% of the total building perimeter, more than 12 feet above the finished grade ground level at any point. That's the definition of a story.
So, do you interpret what they're asking for as a story then by that definition? Because I don't think we've done that in the past, but that doesn't mean that, maybe we interpreted it wrong previously. Anybody else like to speak?
I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you do allow this, is there any reason why they have to be windows going up the side of the roof access?
We can talk about that.
If I could make a clarification, the windows going to the roof access is facing the liquor store.
Not
It's
from, okay, the drawing I have is the right side, and I'm still looking at that. This one,
Why don't we
like
pull it
that's
out?
on the other side.
Oh, there, well, there.
Now you get left with things.
Yeah, right there. Do you want to come up, Heather, or do you want to?
I have the drawing.
I mean, the previous one is space that number one big gate in which you came out and walked out, and whether it
Does she have the revised one? Or maybe
Yeah,
just-
it's all
storage,
the revised
it
one.
was
I guess-
behind the eaves or rafters twice, and not
Not on top of it.
on top of it.
That is a difference.
This is facing the street, this is the right-hand view, so this is facing the liquor store, and this is the stairwell going up to the roof access.
So, I just want to make sure that Heather understands the plan. That he's saying that,
Definitions, any story
That
that
the-
is finished for
let's
a
go
certain
show.
entirely above grade, period. The exceptions all have to do with basements.
This is the front,
Yeah.
and this is the like, roof access here,
That's
and this
the
is
floor.
the right
It seems-
side view. This is
Yeah,
facing
but
the
I don't know what other
Oh,
provisions there might be in there that
There's
would
a
cause a
street,
different
right?
Yeah,
interpretation.
this is facing the street.
And not in that section, I mean, but in
Yeah,
other.
and this is facing the liquor store. So-
Okay, all right, as long as they're on that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, these are the stairs, like, this is all facing the street. So these are the stairs,
Others have provided exterior stairs.
that's the rear of the house. And this is facing
Previous
the
applications if we're
property. This is the side,
looking to
this is
think
the left
back on
side, so facing the
how some of
street.
that came
Okay, I was looking at it from standing
Oh, okay.
here.
Sure,
Oh,
yeah.
that's the right side.
Right, and we honestly minimize windows and stuff
Yeah.
in this area, and basically,
So do you need that top vision?
that would be the bedroom. Yeah, that's the bedroom, and,
That's the rooftop access.
oh, the very top?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's a door,
That's the door?
right, that's a door,
Okay. That looks like a window.
yeah.
So
You're good.
there is a technicality, we could argue that that is an enclosed floor and it meets the definition of a floor. That said, if you were to put the curved roof across the entire building as is and have it be attic space, it would still be the same height.
Right.
So that's the rub of the two.
Do you understand what Eric said? Heather?
So we're gonna call it attic space now?
No,
I guess.
I'm saying there's a couple different ways to look at things, and if you read the definition of a story and it's covered over it, it meets the definition of a story.
Okay,
If they decide to take out the roof deck and put a full roof over their roof, which is a curved roof, of which they've drawn half at the moment, or they've drawn this piece for the stair to come up,
yeah,
they could put the full roof over the entire building and it would still meet the definition of the building height. So the structure could be...
But it would be a story at that point.
No, it
No.
could be unfinished attic space, but the roof could be, the structure could be much larger than it currently is under the definitions we have in our bylaw.
Okay,
Do you want
but what I guess what I'm saying is this rooftop access, it's not being used as an attic space.
to? No, I'm just,
No, what Eric's trying to do is explain that you could have a larger mass on this house that would fit the definition of not being a story.
it would not have a roof deck, but it would be a much larger structure.
Right.
Okay. I guess what I'm saying though is that since, I get that. My point is, since it's, this rooftop attic is not being used as attic space, does it then not constitute a story?
Yeah, one could look at it that way. I mean, I wasn't making an argument for or against, I was just pointing
Yeah,
out.
no, I understand. I think, basically you're saying if it's attic space, then it's not counted as a story.
Right.
And I'm saying, I hear you, but that's not the use of this space.
So, I'm not trying to argue for or against when I say this. Come up and take a look at this roof, and if your concern is the mass and blocking the view,
I'm concerned that people are gonna be out on this deck that we're not counting as FAR, which I understand the deck, we're not counting it, I
right,
get
you can't
that.
count it as FAR.
But it absolutely is gonna be living space, and I don't want people over me having, you just do not understand what it's gonna feel like. I'm gonna be living in a fishbowl.
I understand what you're saying, but
And since this is limited to 2 stories, and I think we're all pretty clear about that, then why are we allowing this rooftop access, which under the definition is a story, because it's not being used as attic space? Why are we allowing that?
Well, partly it's been allowed because it's been an improvement of the size of the structure that was either previously there or proposed. And there have been some, there was, I don't know how far back it goes, but we're not really looking back at principles. There was one that was made to be an exterior stair, like it.
what do you think, Wayne?
I get her point.
But it could be done in other ways and still be the same thing.
Yeah,
If you had an exterior stairway,
yeah.
which some people have done.
I think that's a serious issue. But there's also the issue of the house here, her house here, the other.
Yeah, no matter what.
Yeah.
There's the one on the basin that was sitting on top of the gabled roof with posts, but it was open lattice, which made it more open as opposed to enclosing the sides was the thought. And they
Right.
offered to put the lattice so that air and wind could move around it and it wasn't such an enclosed structure. And that had, I believe, exterior access as well. well. I mean, in terms of the definition, as Larry would agree, it is that one, just one sentence that talks about having a floor surface.
Well, I don't think we thought of it that way before tonight.
Yep, I could
Yep,
speak.
go ahead.
You know, this has been gone through very carefully with Sam Jocelyn, you know, as far as the number of stories, also state building code does not define that as a story. And Larry's an attorney in West Newbury. I've been an engineer for over, a licensed professional engineer in construction for over 40 years, licensed in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, New York. I'm practicing. We've done many developments, many buildings. You know, it's clearly straightforward, and as Sam mentioned, there are actually provisions in this where we don't, his words, where we don't even have to go to the ZBA. We could take the existing footprint, which is actually bigger than what we're proposing, and build it planned. Go up to 2 stories, you know, so as long as,
Why do you
No,
need,
you
why do
can't.
you, why do you need?
You misinterpreted that because once you change the height of the building, you have to come here.
I'm just referring to what Sam said.
Okay, well, he was mistaken if that's what he said,
We've
but maybe you
corrected Sam before in the
misinterpreted it.
past. Sam's word isn't gospel.
Okay.
In getting here, it might be, but
Why do we need a rooftop deck? Why does it have to be, the thing is 16 feet. You're supposed to have it be the same size as the existing structure. Why do we have to have a rooftop deck? It's going to be a beautiful house without one.
Well,
Why?
the way the PIOD is interpreted, and you can interpret it the way you want, is that if it's an improvement over what is there, and they're under what the PIOD allows, then they can do it.
I just don't think it's very fair. I understand it's in the definition. I get that.
Okay,
But I don't.
and we need to try to follow what the bylaws are and the intent of the bylaws.
But the intent is to limit this structure to its existing size. That's my point.
Well,
And here's the thing.
I guess
Why-
we're entitled to disagree.
Why is the rooftop deck? Why is that not considered far? They're going to be living on it, albeit it's seasonal. But
It's because it's not considered that. I understand what you're trying to get at, but we do have to go by what we have and not because a neighbor doesn't want to have a deck next to him. You know, that's not a reason to approve or disapprove.
well, I think that's the problem because the recourse that abutters have, the applicants have the recourse of, here's my measurements, okay? The abutters have the recourse of, if it's detrimental to your neighborhood, which is a totally subjective determination.
It is subjective.
And it's really not fair.
Okay.
well, we're either hung up on the definition of the story or we're not, Ally.
Right.
Pretty straightforward. We either proceed with the understanding or we seek, I don't know, town council's understanding. We have talked about this in the past, about roof decks being problematic.
Oh, yeah, no,
Build
I
the
think they
fine.
always are, but I don't think we really interpreted this situation as being a story before, and maybe we should have.
Well, what do you think about getting town council's opinion? This is very controversial.
Okay. I think it's probably a good idea, and if they say that it is a story, then our hands are tied, and if they say it's not, then we can vote on the application we received.
Yeah.
Does that sound
Yeah.
reasonable to you, Eric?
Sounds reasonable to me, since we're trying, and we repeatedly say that past precedents are interesting, but we don't stand to say that just because somebody else did something means that it's written in here.
So I think,
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we seek town council's opinion on the definition of story as it applies
to this,
to this, and so that we can clarify this now and forever.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I think it's big enough.
Sorry to delay this for you one way or another, but it's the only way that we're ever going to have this figured out.
Well, if everything's okay, my interpretation is that, what we're proposing is fine.
Well, hold that thought for a minute. Besides this, Eric, did you go through the revisions? Is there any issues?
No other issues than what we had talked about. It's really the 70 square feet access to the roof. The roof height was, and the height of the building was confirmed.
Okay.
So,
Right. So,
Just so that if he's gonna come back, he's just gonna come back with what?
right, the same thing.
Yeah,
Right, that's what I'm assuming,
yeah.
or I was
Townhouses,
assuming,
yeah.
right. And then we'll, if it's determined it's a story, then you have a problem from the town council. And if it's determined it's not a story, then we can vote on it.
Right, so I don't see it being determined as a story, but in the event it should, then you put stairs on the side of the building.
Well,
Right.
I guess that's an alternative.
Right.
Yeah,
Just-
whether
yeah,
that's
Perhaps,
good for anybody or not, I don't know.
yeah.
Does that mean that no one will ever be able to have a rooftop deck?
No, we're not saying, either way, it wouldn't say you couldn't have a rooftop deck, you have to design it differently. I guess.
I'm just saying that other people that have one rooftop deck, have you considered now the town
Well,
council?
we don't know
considers it a story?
until we, the town council gives us an interpretation. But if they determine that what you're proposing to access a rooftop deck is a story, and then that's not the way you could ever have a rooftop deck.
Do you mean
Your access room
the
from
access
the
room,
interior.
eliminate the access room,
Yeah, I think, we're gonna know after we,
So,
the access room?
I just asked one last question. Are there any other applications before you that involve rooftop decks?
I don't believe so.
Nothing for us at the moment.
That-
But,
So the access room, if we get rid of the access room,
What's that?
they're saying if we get rid of the access room, then it's not considered a story. Is that correct? Right.
we want a determination
Yeah, make a
from
determination.
the town council whether it's a story or not. If it's a story, then our hands are
The
tied.
access room.
Right.
It's not the deck.
Right,
Okay. That's what you're trying to do.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I misunderstood.
yeah,
what you
we're not saying you can or cannot have a deck. You mean to get to the
said.
deck,
I
it's
get it. I thought it was the deck.
yeah, no, it's not the deck. We don't have, there's nothing in the bylaws that say you can't have a deck.
Okay.
It's the
I agree
story
with
that,
How you access it.
right,
Okay, I get it.
right. And you've always had issues with it, but this is the first time the story was brought up with a definition. So we're going to continue to the next meeting.
Yeah, before you move on to the
Oh,
next
sure.
thing, I know that the recent planning board meeting, we know you've been struggling with this whole area, rooftop decks and mean height elevations and all of that. And we did have a discussion. Martha Taylor, actually our town planner, has some history on that whole subject. And it was the sense of the planning board that it might be appropriate if we had a joint meeting, both the ZBA and the planning board. I know it's difficult for you to come to our daily workshops, so we can come to one of your regular meetings, or you can join us at one of ours. And I think it's a great idea to get town council's weigh in on this too. And I think the entire area, it probably needs to be looked at very closely. So I don't know, Susan, maybe you could get with Martha and
Yep.
work something out on a
Yep.
date. We can all get
Yep,
together.
no problem.
Okay.
So are we agreeing March 19th is our next meeting date?
Yes. Is that okay with you?
Well, who is town council now?
It's me, Teller, and Acosta. So I just need you to sign as applicant over here on the
Oh.
left. Yeah. And Helen is welcome to sign it as well. Happy to sign.
Again, thank you very much, you know,
Okay.
again, trying to do, we're trying to do it twice.
Yeah.
you
Right,
know,
well, we are too.
We're being paid,
We are too. So,
thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
good night.
This is the one.
I know, I got the email yesterday or whatever.
Excuse me.
Can I leave it? It was changed.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Do you want to at least do the presentation and then you want to do the presentation?
Yeah, I'll ask him if he wants it. Okay.
Ready?
Yep, go ahead.
All right, next hearing. D2W LLC, care of Mark Griffin Esquire, 1 Plum Bush Down, Plum Island. The applicant is requesting a finding for relief from section 97-4D of the Newbury zoning bylaws, as the proposed construction will increase both the height and coverage of the structure for the property located at Assessor's Map R51-0-015.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mark Griffin, I'm attorney at Finner and Nicholson with offices in 30 Green Street, Newburyport, and representing D2W LLC, as you heard. And,
Okay, actually, before you get started,
Sure.
Mark, we all question the late arrival of the changes.
yes,
So,
I understand.
so we're probably not gonna do anything tonight.
Okay.
You wanna go ahead and do your presentation? We'll listen.
I think it'd be worthwhile.
Okay.
And I think when you hear it, you're going to find out that the changes that were made in the subsequent plans that were filed today are really de minimis, and you might actually consider, you know, voting on those after you hear this, I hope.
Okay, oh,
So,
yep, go ahead.
first, I want to start off by letting you know that there's no rooftop deck. If you're familiar with Plum Bush Downs, and I know you are, you
Yes.
probably remember that we had four Plum Bush Downs in here months ago. And so we modeled this application the same way. We utilized the 27.9 acre overall lot for our calculations. So that's why when you look at the application and the FAR and the lot coverage worksheet, the numbers are very tiny because we're working with a 27.9 acre lot. The existing home is located in the residential agricultural zoning district. It's also by a quirk located in the PIOD, even though it's not on Plum Island. And the house is actually, you've probably seen it before. I'll try to, we're right before you go over the Plum Island Bridge. It's a small one-story house. It's in terrible condition. And actually, having seen it myself, I'm actually surprised it lasted this long. I really thought that, you know, a wave was going to take it away. And it's literally the last house on the left before the bridge. So the existing elevations are in your packet. These elevation drawings actually make it look a lot better shaped than it really is. It's rickety and kind of falling apart. It's located, obviously, built on grade. It's located in the flood zone. It's Unit 1 in the Plum Bush Downs condominium, as I mentioned before. It's, again, right off the Plum Island Turnpike. Plum Bush Downs is 11 total condominium units. And And that's one of the reasons why the FAR and the lot coverage checklist shows such small numbers. It's also one of the reasons that the setbacks are shown as so large, because we're taking setbacks from other condominium units to lot lines that are not near this house, this unit. So the only real setback that's associated with this unit is the front setback, and that just happens to be non-conforming. So the front setback's a little over 16 feet, and it's pre-existing legally non-conforming, and that's really the reason that we're in here. That and the fact that we're raising the height. There's a slight expansion of the footprint, but very little. And as you know, in the PIOD, when you have pre-existing non-conforming, raise the height, to expand the footprint, you need a finding. And so the proposal is to reconstruct the single-family home on the property. The proposed home is obviously larger in volume, but again, we're working with a 27.9 acre lot. So, a larger volume really only brings our FAR up to about 1% total. So the new home, unlike the previous one, will be up on pilings and compliant with flood regulations. The increase in stories is from 1 to 2, so we're compliant in the PIOD there, which limits construction to 2 stories. The footprint is just barely expanded. The increase in square footage, though, is about 1,006 square feet, approximately. The lot coverage is a little less than 1%, about 0.7%, because there's a negligible building footprint. And by the way, we're including all of the proposed construction that might take place at 4 Plumbush Downs, but hasn't yet. So inserted in those calculations, we're using that as if that thing is built, even though it isn't. The impervious driveway has enough room for 2 cars, so it's got compliant parking, as you can see from the renderings. And the bedroom count, the 1-story existing structure is a 2-bedroom count. There's an as-of-right allowance for an additional bedroom, so we'll be going up to 3 bedrooms, as you can see from the floor plans that were provided. So the height obviously is changing. The original height, the mean height was approximately 15 feet. The new height, the plans that you had previously filed, this height is approximately 32 feet, the mean. The new plan that's filed, and these 2 sets out. I got everything very late in the day today. Everything late in the day, so I wasn't able to get large plans for you, and I could only get a couple of sets. But there you go, and there's a new site plan as well. And I'll highlight the differences between what's up here and what's in front of you. And so, first off, the site plan. So what was filed originally on the site plan, you'll see that our non-conforming front setback is 16.6. Okay, that maintained the existing setback for the building that's there now. So it didn't change at all. What we're doing in the new plan, and by the way, the changes were dictated by our conservation requirements. So on the new plan, if you look at the site plan, we're now at 18.2. So we're actually making that setback better. We're going from 16.6 to 18.2.
Do we have an application that says what Mark's talking about?
The application itself wasn't updated, just the
Okay.
plans.
No,
and stuff.
no, it's not, but the zoning matrix is on the new site plan that I've submitted.
Okay.
So it does show what your dimensions are. The setback, again, improved to 18.2, and that was, we had to pull the building forward that way to stay out of the marsh. We also had to fit the building closer into the footprint of what existed before. That was part of the regulations that we had to follow. In addition, we had to change the piling plan. So you'll see we have less pilings and farther apart. We decreased the size of the deck. There's a proposed cantilever deck. You'll see it in your new packet, if you will. And the upshot of these changes really is a change in height. So the height now is at 33.38 when it was about 32 before. So the plan I got up here is what was filed. So that's the 32.29, and the plan that you have is 33.38. So that's really the difference between what was filed and what you have. The FAR is still at the same amount. The lot coverage is still at the same amount because things have not changed enough to budge that number because they're so small and the lot area is so big. So that's getting on to the finding criteria. The proposed use is the existing use. It's a single-family residential occupancy. And that use is permitted by right in the agricultural residential district and also in the PIOD, as you know. The construction of a building that's taller than what existed requires a finding under 97.4D 5D and expansion of a footprint. And so we have to prove that what we're building is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what exists. And as I've mentioned before, what exists is in incredibly poor shape. It's also built on grade and doesn't comply with flood zone regulations. And so, as I think is relevant, what I think is relevant is the intent of the PIOD, at least a large part of the intent, is to reduce damage to public and private property resulting from floodwaters, to ensure public safety by reducing threats to life and personal injury, eliminate costs associated with response and cleanup of flooding conditions. So that part of the intent of the PIOD is met squarely by what we're proposing because we are going to be above grade, we're going to be on pilings, and we're going to comply. And whether it's substantially more detrimental, I think you can easily find that it's not only that, but it's quite better than what exists now. What exists now is subject to flooding, subject to damage, and is in extremely poor shape. This is an improvement not just in safety, but also in aesthetics. And for all those reasons, we respectfully request that you grant our application for finding. And I'm happy to answer some questions, and Matt Petty is here to
Your explanation is all fine and understand you're saying there are minimal changes, but the application isn't present with the new numbers. I know it's here, and I don't know if, Eric, you can make heads or tails of the differences. I do see some of them.
The one issue I have is, Mark, is that you have the site plan, you have the survey plan, everything's here except for the dimensions of the other yard setbacks.
It's not on the zoning matrix? The plan?
Side.
Yeah, that's good, that's text. Where is it on the plan that shows us how the building is sited?
Well, so as I kind of explained, since we're going by the overall lot,
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But everybody submits a site plan to show graphically how
Right.
their structure fits on the
Yeah,
lot.
you can come up.
Yeah, I
You
just
can
want
watch.
to see the,
And so,
that's my question.
Right.
again, just making sure that everybody understands this moving forward, or that
so
it's-
we would need to take, for instance, for the rear setback, we need to take the unit of the other 10 and take the rear wall of that unit and go all the way back to the lot line. And then for that setback, we need to take the farthest one out
I know,
do
but I
that
think
setback.
in terms of having it documented, as everyone else has documented in a site plan of having that, and it then matches text, it matches words, it matches everything that we're doing. Otherwise, somebody pulls this up and says, prove it, and they're looking like, how did this happen? What,
We
where's?
did use, oh, sorry, did you have?
No,
What is it? Okay. We did use the dimensions for Plumbush for those setbacks. They haven't changed.
I know, I understand, but, you know, as we continuously try to improve, and I think it's in your interest to have a site plan that has those dimensions on it so that it's there, it's complete. And I know it's gonna be quite small if we take something like this, and it may only be that big, but at least it states it. Because anybody else that comes along and says, okay, where's it on the plan? Well, where is your site, and how are you measuring to? So, you know, it gets easier in Plumbush as you go through these, but how the first one was in terms of trying to understand what it really, what this thing.
I hear what you're saying, but I wish you would take into account that those setbacks aren't being affected. So what we're building is only affecting one setback. So those setbacks are what they are. Our building does not touch them. Our building does not alter them.
But I took this home and showed it to my wife and said, where are the setbacks? What is she gonna say? She's gonna look at the plan and say, okay, you got one, where are the other ones? I mean, I'm just saying for the record, we're trying to be, that's what we always ask for.
Right.
And no one gets through here without having a surveyed site plan that at least has the dimensions of all 4 yard setbacks on them.
I don't think we can survey the whole 28 acres for the purpose of
But
establishing
there's-
setbacks.
No, but there's a common deed plan that shows the whole thing.
We
that's
can
on the-
provide the condominium site plan, if
So
you'd like
let's-
that.
Yeah, I think so, and if you take that and even put the measurements on it that state so that the text and the graphics are complete, then that's all I'm looking for.
I think we can do that.
Can I ask a question? Is that
Sure.
better?
Go ahead.
This is the old plan, and as you're talking, all right,
That's, yeah, there's the new
Okay.
plan.
so as I'm understanding the conversation about setback and the perfect layman standing in front of the board, but here I am. Are you talking about how the house shows up on the piece of land when you're talking about setbacks? So
Yes.
is this was closer to the road and this is further from the road?
Correct.
Okay, so, the consideration I would ask as an abutter is the effect that has on the overall, existence of the homes there. So by this going, you know, the way that they're situated now, everybody has a certain amount of $1 million view. And if we're allowed to change our situation, by something more than height, it has an effect on the $1 million view.
Well, we've been through this before with the first one, which was 4, and I wouldn't say it was excruciating, but it took a lot of effort to understand what this condominium homeowners association, these group of
Mhm.
dwellings and
Mhm.
the parcel of land that they sit on and the relationship of
Mhm.
the parcels, the structures to the parcels and the lots within the whole condominium association.
Mhm.
So this is an oddball.
Agreed,
This is not, you can't take this over to Plum Island and
in
just
many ways.
look at a lot. So we understand your point about the view, but the enormity of the property is allowing, you know, and I argued the point before that there were the side setbacks, and if you take the setback to the property, not amongst these units, but you take it from here to the property line that's over there, you could build out a whole parcel, wall to wall almost, with those rules. But as we went through and reviewed what the documents had stated, you know, it seemed to be allowed.
Right.
So
So is
my-
your question that this proposed structure is gonna be located in a different spot? Is that what you're wondering?
Right, if
Okay,
it comes back off the road,
okay, so,
which is what it sounds like this new plan is more of.
I don't think so. No, I think, Mark, you can probably maybe explain it better.
Yeah, it's a
That,
1.6 foot difference.
Yeah,
So this, what
Right,
was
but-
right here is now,
Right.
you know, moved back
Correct.
to be, instead of 16.6, 18 point.
it's about a foot and a half difference
So,
from the
Okay,
road.
That's fine.
so,
But,
Well, I just
What
want to
that
make sure
means-
we're answering the
Right.
question.
and if it, so in totality, as I understand the precedence for number 4, and the way the land was used is that the facing, the oceanside face of the house doesn't extend beyond what was originally there. So what was approved and agreed by everybody was,
That could be, I can't remember
was to
exactly.
hold that,
I can't
you know,
remember that.
that was the
to be
piece,
honest.
was there wasn't any, there's no building out, there's no moving of, that was maintained. So that, I think, is the thing that, you know,
Question, eh?
Staying
we're
in
hoping
the
to maintain because of the way, and, you know, in particular,
Correct.
my house was built architecturally
So,
to overlook the marsh. And if you take,
Correct.
you know, what is 1 foot here and
Deck.
1 foot or less than a foot here, coming out 2 feet is halfway through my architectural feature with beautiful windows that overlook a marsh right now. So I just want to, you know, that's what I'm trying to be mindful of
we hear
the
you.
precedence
And-
here and where that's going to end up on a piece of.
Right. So I think Mark has stated, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but the basic back side of the house is the same, almost exactly the same, and actually on this drawing, it appears to be slightly
We
forward.
just compared the two, they
Yeah, well, do you have?
extremely similar.
Are you comparing
So
the
the,
original plans or to the existing?
I mean, if you move a
That-
foot,
that's
you
what
move a
she
foot,
wants to-
right?
That's the original.
Yeah.
but,
That's the existing.
so let's,
No, this
Excuse me, sorry.
This
The
is-
existing is shaded below it.
Right.
Yeah.
so let's just say that this, I think, that your argument is, this is the existing footprint right now,
Mhm.
and this is the new footprint, like so. So they're no
And
more farther
This deck
back.
is the same size as the deck that's there now?
No.
Correct. So what I'm saying is if you're a foot here and you're however many feet here, it's a different,
I
it's a
understand
different
that.
existence
but-
on the piece of land from the ocean side, which wasn't approved
This is the
at number
existing
4.
deck, is it not? Sure.
Well, that was my question.
Well,
was
that's
is-
what we're trying to
I just
determine.
asked you,
Yeah, that's
is
it.
this deck the
Yeah,
same
That's
size?
the existing deck right there.
Okay. Does
Okay,
that
but
say
that
that
wasn't
on?
outlined as something that was existing, but obviously I know there's a deck there,
Proposed
deck?
is this.
which is not the
This
same.
that. Proposed is
Well, that
smaller
says
than
deck.
existing.
That says proposed.
You can see it
On
here.
the
But it
side.
says, it
On the
says,
larger-
Smaller.
Okay,
This hatched line is where the outside face of the building is, now the building is
and this
here.
hard line here is the existing,
Deck line.
Deck line.
And that little white piece in the stairs
Got it.
were existing, and now it's being pulled back to be.
Right, there's no stairs on this. Okay.
okay, so let's say this is, it's
Another
still the
foot.
same distance here, except for a foot. Is that correct?
No, it's exactly the same.
Well,
That-
how did we,
yeah, but the
This,
setback is
this one was
larger.
made smaller, but it was made smaller going this way.
okay,
So,
yeah.
and, you know, we do appreciate and the intent of the zoning in terms of overcrowding and blocking light and blocking wind, but there are no actual bylaws that speak exactly to
No, it's back to the
obstruction.
right to the abutter, again, which
Of
is
use.
ambiguous and not defined, so.
I
You know, all
understand.
those things of privacy and light and wind and
Right.
all of that is, you know, it's not part of the argument. And so I think,
But
What I was
but
asking more
it's
about-
not anywhere in zoning.
understood,
Yeah.
understood. Part of what I was asking about was, and unclear about, and happy to be here, is just sort of doing my right in protecting the
Sure.
value of my property and the view that I purchased, right? So I paid for that $1 million view, and I paid for that architectural structure that juts out and looks over the marsh. So that's the challenge for me, is that 1 foot actually makes a difference to me.
True, but they have every right to the view, and if you don't own the property, then you don't own that view from that property, so. I hear
think
what
their-
you're
Their
saying.
view doesn't change. If they're back a foot or forward a foot, their view is, you know, because they're
Yeah, but it's their piece of property. I mean, if they're building within the same footprint, then what, I'm not gonna argue the view, I'm not
That's
gonna
great.
try to make the argument.
What's unclear
for
to
the
me is
view.
that it was the same, it was, if the setback changes, that changes the ocean side of the house. So
Well, the ocean
my
side of the house
preference
is that
is-
side, right?
is here.
Right,
I mean,
so,
it's here, the whole,
I know, but your house is over here, so which view are you looking at? I
the
mean,
house is right here.
right.
So I'm just saying, if they pull out, if they come out here
That's
versus staying back here,
Their deck is in the same line as it was previously, and the face of the building is in the same
despite the
line as it was
house
previously.
moving back
It's actually,
a foot.
get this right, the wall is moving in this way, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's why our setback increased. So look, see how close it was to the existing exterior wall over here on the first plan file? Now look how it's pulled back on the second plan file. So the reason for the setback being different here is not necessarily that the house has been pulled that way, it's that this wall has been brought in that way.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And, yep, and this is the red is the existing? The-
Not including the deck, but yeah.
So,
There's a covered porch that
This
is not
is the
included in
new-
that red line either. So the covered porch that exists is out here.
Yeah, you know, I do a little right there.
Wood deck.
It's easier to look at this plan to understand what's new and existing, and then,
Yeah. So you can see underneath, like that, that's existing wood deck out here, that is existing, that's existing.
So
This deck
one-
back here is
so
existing.
this,
One could
when
argue
you say
that-
this is existing, it's not this that's existing?
They both are.
I'm confused.
But what's white, they're not
There's
gonna
no
use
deck-
anymore.
There's no deck after the covered porch right now.
Covered porch, wood deck.
Look at the pictures.
Sorry, in the new building. When you say existing, I'm thinking,
The-
sorry.
The white portion that
Here.
is outlined is,
Right here.
is existing, that no longer will be used.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
While you're thinking about that, I'm going to ask if anybody else has any other questions. Anybody like to speak in favor, opposed, or questions? Okay.
close it, discuss.
Yeah, we'll close the meeting. I think that I have the general understanding of what they want to do. I think it's going to work. But I don't see it in front of me, if that makes any sense to anybody.
No, it makes perfect sense. It's not.
So I'd like to see it in front of me before we vote on it.
Yeah, I would, you know, you presented it the same way that the other property number 4 concluded, and so it is the same understanding of where the total property boundaries are and what the setbacks are via the discussion and the covenants have been provided, you know, that we had asked for and determined, so this time they're provided in full for someone to read and get to the technicality if we had to go back through it again. But I just think it's a documentation issue for someone to clearly understand when they read this and they look at that they understand that where those other lines are. And
You're in agreement, Wayne?
Would you consider,
Well, we're
Sorry.
technically closed.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I know, I forget sometimes what we're doing also, but, so, what we're gonna ask for is,
Well, we need a complete revised application,
Right.
not just the FAR checklist. And,
that's what I,
yeah.
okay, so should I
Whether
open?
that's-
And-
yeah,
Okay, we'll reopen, go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna ask if you would consider making a decision tonight contingent upon us submitting those materials. And the reason is that although we want to get all our ducks in a row, we know that when those materials are submitted, the FAR is not going to be close. The lot coverage will not be close. The setbacks from other units are not things that are going to be affected by our construction. So it's a paperwork exercise that we have to do, and the public needs to see it, but it will not affect the outcome of the application.
Excuse me.
Now, I know we've done that in the past, but yours is different. Unless you're confident that we want to look at it in a week or two, somebody's going to look at it in a week or two. I'm not looking.
I think we've been worn down by a couple applications, Mark, where they continuously, things have changed. And, you know, I'm not getting paid to do this and put in good time taking up other stuff I could be doing with the family to volunteer my time to do this, only to get applications that change. Yours are minor, I understand your point, but it's getting to the point where, as we had stated in the beginning, that we're almost ready to cut you off and just say, you know, we got it today, thank you, we'll continue it, because you know, I just wasted my whole evening to go over and copiously check this out to help you in your favor move this along. So you're getting the brunt of a little bit of somebody else, but that's the reality of it. And that's how, you know, how I feel. And so the last time, and even, you know, for the last applicant to not get all their ducks in a row really caused, and then the submitting stuff that was changing was extremely confusing. So I think Howie stated it, and I think I stated it, that I think you're in the right to do this, but we'd like to see the documentation and the application.
Then we'll vote on it.
In order to vote on it. So
we have a motion to continue.
make a motion to continue.
Stipulation that we get a completed application.
We get a completed application.
In time of fashion, which I don't do.
Motion to pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, no fault in his, by the way.
Yeah.
It's certainly not the case. Thank you. Yeah.
No, it makes a good application all the time. And as I said, if this is the site plan and you have a condo document and you put dimensions on the condo document, in this case, I think that would be acceptable.
We can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before you go, you need to sign.
Yep.
Oh, that motion was second and all in favor?
Oh, yeah.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You can sign that, just, yeah.
So we're going to continue this to the 19th.
So, this is actually,
I don't know, I
was
just
thinking-
want to move that.
Always be ready, right?
so even now,
Glenn Garrigan,
Right.
Glenn Ross.
this height, that's all, and I didn't even know. So,
I didn't have anything new
well,
until I
you
came
have
in.
also keep,
Yeah,
and
It's no good.
I don't know. One of them's new.
this one's,
I have all the new in mind,
Okay,
so
that's,
don't worry about it.
and they're gonna give us something.
And they're gonna give us another full, I hope, so.
Okay. So, what's our other, oh, wait a minute, we have
Yeah.
continuance.
Yeah,
yeah,
So do we need to read that?
I can read it and just let you know.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Put the word, this one's the word.
80
Yeah,
Northern,
that's fine.
yeah.
Okay, I'll just read it and then ask for continuance.
Yeah, I can, yeah.
I'm not expecting much.
That's why.
Okay, well, go ahead and read it.
Doesn't bode well after.
Public hearing, Al Ward, 80 Northern Boulevard, Plum Island. The applicant is requesting a finding for relief from section 97-4D of the Newbury zoning bylaws, as the proposed construction will increase both the height and lot coverage percentage for the property located at Assessor's Map U03-0181.
Okay, so I spent a substantial amount of time speaking with the applicant. The applicant in turn has also spent a substantial amount of time with the butters, who are very up in arms about this whole project that he's proposing.
Okay.
80 Northern, it had what appears to be kind of an accessory apartment built within it. I think he misunderstood what his right was, so he has a right to the structure, but he doesn't have a right to the use of a two-family, so I went through that with him. I also told him I checked with our treasurer collector's office about how many betterments that he had, and he has one betterment for that home. So I think as a result of his discussions with the abutters, as well as the information that I provided to him, that he has decided to request a continuance so he can try and sort it all out.
Okay.
Okay. I did receive 2 letters as well, I'm not gonna read them today.
No, okay, just
But there
keep it on file.
were one from Joe McClima at Climate 75 Northern, and also from a Joyce Vining Morgan. Her address isn't jumping out immediately, so
Okay.
I'll keep those on the record.
All right, so can we have a motion to continue,
I'll make a motion to continue 80 Northern Boulevard
do we have a
for the
second?
boards.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So
Okay.
you'll get them to sign off on that, I assume?
Yeah, he did send an email, so.
Yep, okay.
You guys know there's a question in the back?
Yes, go
Can I
ahead.
have a question? Because this is the one I actually came to
Yeah, sure. Go
to
ahead.
listen to, because I live at 79 right across the street. My understanding, at least from the abutter notice that I got, was he wants to increase not only the size but the height.
Yes.
Does it say how high? I couldn't figure it out.
I can look at his application and I can tell you what he was proposing.
Okay.
Pretty sure it was.
Yeah, he
got
says the height is existing is 18.3 feet.
Yep.
And the height to the mean height of the roof, not the top of the roof, but the mean height of the roof would be 33.7 feet.
So they're going up 22 inches?
22 feet.
22 feet, sorry. That's a
No, it
lot.
would be 20, so that would be 13, it'd be 15 feet.
15 feet, still, it's a whole story.
And is he going on pilings? I don't remember.
I
guess it doesn't
he has
matter
to.
really at
He
this
has
point.
to, he's tearing it down, so.
Well, I think the neighbors brought up some of the issues that I was going to have in terms of the huge technicality of what's being presented. I'll leave it at that since we're not discussing it.
Right, okay. Any other questions?
That was it, I'm with the woman that was here prior. It's, look, my view right now, the ocean's unobstructed, and I don't mind him building a new house on the same property, but if he wants to tear it down and put something up that's twice as tall and I'm not gonna have a view anymore, that impacts my value of my house. So I have a huge concern with that. I don't have a problem with people doing what they want with their property, but I do where it impacts my property. That's it.
I know he's been speaking with about 5 abutters, so I don't know if you've had an open communication with them or not.
I had a thing in my mailbox just talking about this meeting. and
Okay,
I mentioned it to him.
okay, so,
So we're assuming we're gonna be back on March 9th?
March.
That was my question, what's the next step?
March 19th.
March
March 19th?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay. Same bat channel?
same back
Yep.
channel.
Okay,
Right.
thank you for your time.
yeah,
Rusty.
you're welcome. Okay, so then we have an informal guest.
Yes. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, first I just want to recognize how late it is and appreciate the board spending a few minutes to listen to what I have to say.
Okay.
This is a little bit unorthodox and I can explain why I'm here. I'm here with Mike Lehan from the Moore and Cameron Group. My name is George Hazeltine. I am collaborating with Adam True of True Homes. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Adam. He's just did a recent project off a high road. So Adam and I are proposing a subdivision here located at 221 High Road, between 221 and 217. The reason why I'm here to the Zoning Board of Appeals is in the interest of potentially saving a structure. And the reason for that is we'd be proposing a subdivision that would be coming through in between these homes here. However, we would trigger 2 minor variances in order to get the road in between these 2 structures. We have done a plan that shows a by right proposal with the same amount of lots that would require tearing down one of the homes. I've met with the town planner, Martha, on this subject. She has encouraged me and Adam to try and find a way to save this structure, which is a mid-century modern home. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this. We do have some photos that we could show you. But really, I'm not asking for any decisions or anything like that, but we're really just trying to, and Mike's going to give you a little bit more of an indication of what type of variances we would be asking for the board.
So I'm assuming that there's not enough frontage to maintain frontage for both homes that are existing now?
So,
Not a frontage. Do you want me to get into some of the variances?
Well, no, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand why you're asking for the variance, other than you don't want to tear the house down.
correct.
The road, I'm assuming you want to put a road in.
We want to put a road in here, and Mike technically can give just a brief synopsis on
Okay.
what the two small variances are.
Yeah, all right,
But
go ahead.
And why don't you just explain to them
Sure.
briefly?
Sure. I'll just set it on the table too, just so you guys have, I don't want to shift your focus, but I wanted to see the kind of view from the road. Just share that with.
Oh, okay, this is just beyond Bayview Lane, is that?
Yes, actually, yeah.
So, one of these houses was the Browns, and the other one, I can't remember, Myers, maybe, originally?
Correct, that's very good.
Okay,
So you are
Very
familiar.
familiar.
You are familiar.
yeah.
That was
Well, I
impressive.
lived on High Road for a long time, but, okay, go ahead.
Great, sure. Yeah, thank you again for having us here on short notice. Yeah, Michael Hand with the Moore and Cameron Group, we're civil engineer. So the intent, to quickly answer your question, so we're not actually asking for, there's essentially pre-existing nonconformities out here now. Primarily side setback right here, you can kind of see it's right at the lot line.
Sure.
You're looking at, you're around a foot of the lot line there. Both of them are non-conforming with respect to area. So you have pre-existing non-conformities. So anytime now we're thinking of altering those parcels that are already non-conforming now are coming back and requesting variance for that. So we're not actually creating new non-conformities or requesting variances that aren't, there's no new non-conformities. So essentially, I think, as George explained, the goal would be to kind of preserve that view. So really the bottom line is there's two homes here now. This land can support a by right subdivision of seven house lots. So the intent would be to keep these two would be two of them, and then have five new ones. And of course, like we said, there is a by right option that would entail taking that house down, and then you'd be opening up that streetscape, and what people are used to would change there versus trying to get kind of squeeze the road. So you have the one house here, and you have the other house here, and then so you'd be able to get a road right between them. But in doing so, of course, this lot would actually change, and we'd actually be able to bring it into conformity with respect to area. So right now it's non-conforming with respect to area and setback. So this would actually be conforming with respect to area, still would have non-conforming side setback. So there would be a side, that would be one of the
Explain that
variances.
specifically. This side setback right here obviously does not meet the current setback. We would actually give more land to this, bringing it to conformity with respect to frontage and size, but we would still be triggering that side setback issue.
Right. And then this one, same thing, it's non-conforming with respect to area. In laying out this street, there's a little land swap happening here, which is just to get the rounding for the new road. So a little bit of a land swap. Now we're technically changing the lot area, and now it will be slightly. I mean, we've added 20 square feet, so we're not adding a lot. It would still be non-conforming. It would be less non-conforming. So it's essentially existing non-conformities. And we're not making them any worse. And the real I think crux of the argument here is that this project would be in the interest of the public here, because it was indicated through Martha that desirable to maintain these older homes, to keep that streetscape, you know, so it's not looking like you have this new subdivision wide open there. It would allow it to kind of fit between two homes, and then back here you would have the 5. And of course, like we said, there's other alternatives, one of which would be to take this home down and bring it through here, and then you could still have the same number. In the end, we're still talking about 7 lots no matter what. We're not gaining anything.
We would greatly prefer to save the home. Economically, honestly, it would be better to tear it down, but it's a mid-century home. It really adds character to the street. Adam and I have both done projects in Newbury. Adam lives in Newbury. I live in Newburyport. You know, I would consider us at the top of our echelon as far as, you know, general contractors and builders go, as far as, you know, homes that we build and adding value. And again, I'm not here to ask you for a decision, but I was really more here to ask you, is this something that you think that would be worth my while to pursue, or is this something that you think that, you know, hey guys, you're barking up the wrong tree here, you know, this is not something that we would consider? Because obviously, to go down this path, we would have to spend a considerable amount of time and energy with the planning board, and what we probably asked to do if it was okay, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but we would probably start by presenting the variance applications and then getting an indication from the board, if you will, and then leaving the application open while we proceeded with the planning board. And assuming everything went well with the planning board and there were no changes to those 2 lots, we would come back in and ask to close out the application. But I certainly don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste anyone's time, you know, with that. So that's what we were hoping we'd get some indication from you.
Is it all contiguous ownership?
No, it's split up into different
The whole back?
beneficiaries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I think, do you know the variances that you're going for?
The 2 specific variances would be for this radius here. We'd be losing some land here, and this is a pre-existing non-conforming lot. So therefore, once we change the lot at all, 1 iota, it would kick it into a variance. But in fact, we're giving that land back by changing this lot line a little bit. So this is actually gaining a little bit of land, but technically, because of this radius curve cut, we would be losing. On
Okay,
this,
let me just stay on that for a minute.
Sure.
So what's the frontage on that lot?
This lot right here,
Right,
145.8.
okay. And is that taken into consideration that you're cutting that corner?
Yes, it is, the new
Okay.
frontage right here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're actually losing a little bit of frontage.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And what is the lot size now?
The lot size now is 23,601 square feet,
Okay.
pre-existing non-conforming.
Right. And are you going to enlarge that lot
It is
as you're going to enlarge the other one, or you're just doing a swap?
not as much.
Okay.
Where this one's going to 23,621,
Yeah, okay.
so it is gaining, but this one, we are making it conforming from a lot size, but obviously, we're kicked into variance
Right.
because of this.
And the
So
frontage is okay on that one?
on this road, yes. it would
No,
become-
but, I mean, the frontage on the top lot that you're enlarging, is that,
They take it off a high road and they put it on the new road.
Yeah, it's going to become part of this lot,
okay,
part of this subdivision now,
okay,
because doesn't have the frontage today for it.
okay.
Um,
But it will have the right frontage.
But it will have the right frontage
Right, okay.
on the new road.
You understand the variance and the means of which, the 3 items of which a variance can be granted
Yep.
under. So, I mean, you would have to present an argument, you know, looking at chapter 40 in terms of zoning, what that means in terms of granting a variance, in terms of the lands or the conditions of the topography.
Right.
Is 1, and then 2, I don't know where we get into doing a variance versus Larry, the planning board goes into just, you know, looking at this. I would have to say that, you know, not really making a comment, but the guy that buys that lot, he's gonna mow his lawn in that corner all the way back there. I mean, that seems kind of like a dubious effort to get everybody the right amount of land.
This here?
No, the 2 lots that border the north and the south. I mean, this is stuff that would drive anybody crazy. Like this, who owns this piece of property back here?
Yeah, so what we would,
This guy has to mow this piece back here and take care of it, or he can
Wouldn't be
put.
clear, you wouldn't clear all of that.
Yeah, but what happens if I put a shed back there and I put some crap and some chickens? This guy's gotta look at it and I have
well,
to
a
transfer stuff.
couple things we're looking at
Eric,
here.
isn't it,
That's
I don't wanna step on your toes,
I
but
know.
isn't that planning board stuff that Larry should be talking
Yeah,
about?
I mean.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just trying to make some
So
criticism of,
So I didn't want to show a road that was over the subdivision road limit, which is 500 feet. What we think we would do is go to the planning board after we have some type of, at least verbal agreement on this, and we would extend the road and ask for a waiver for length to, to fix these issues here. I didn't want to come in with a road that came out to 650 feet, which would normalize these issues.
which is the planning board's issue, but it drives me crazy to see somebody contrive something so hard, and the first thing I tell you is lose a house and just make better lots. That, to me, in terms of a subdivision, would seem much better and provide more value for a homeowner. And for people that want an acre of land, they don't want a contrived acre, they want an acre in which they can be.
Oh yeah, and it wouldn't be that way with the road out here.
I just make that comment,
Sure.
and that being on the zoning board of appeals, I have nothing to do with anything in terms of how you lay out the lot, it's for the planning board, but I just offer my 2 cents there.
Sure.
So is that the only variance you need, is that,
We would need one for here and then this here as
I
well.
mean, that you could approach the planning board for a waiver on the turning radius.
On the turning radius, yeah, but not for this
No,
here.
not
We
of
would
that,
need
I don't think that would, I think that would require.
So you're taking you're changing a non-conforming lot with the understanding or the argument that you're improving it, but you still have non-conformities.
Right.
And so the variance to be granted then is that
Once you change it from conforming use, it comes out. Doesn't it?
but it's still a non-conforming lot because of the setback. It's not like the whole
Yeah.
lot is improved,
What's the
so.
total acreage?
But
out there?
he is improving that.
Well, the whole thing here.
Yeah, so it comes out of
What is it?
non-conforming
Is
status.
Only on the
The
frontage.
size of the, well, the size of the lot.
7.5 or 8 acres.
Right, but the side setback is not.
No, right.
So it's still, not, that it's still a condition that, but it hasn't been exacerbated either.
But
No.
the definition of a variance, he has to show hardship, you know?
That's why I was going with the first thing, is it's
Okay.
clearly written in
Yeah.
chapter 40 of exactly the definition of a variance and the three.
I believe it's about 8, plus or minus 8.
So you're talking about an OSRD, Martha?
Right, so,
We did, and we tried to lay one out, and for whatever reason, I have to refer to Scott Cameron on this. It didn't work out so well because of,
Right.
Have him find
I'm
out.
not quite sure from an engineering
Planning board
perspective,
didn't-
but that was certainly
Well,
something
planning
we
board-
had talked to
make a
Martha about
subdivision
laying out ahead of
that
time,
doesn't require
to try and,
variance.
And requires.
We wanna look at that.
This lot in particular, where are you gonna put the building?
well, we were hoping if we
Flag
did
lots.
get a waiver from
Where's
the,
that out?
I don't even know
from
what that
the
means.
planning board, we would open up
It's like
Like
Pearson
that
Drive, where
space,
you have
you know, with
the
the
drive,
the
looks like
radius.
it's the end of Pearson Drive, where you have the little driveway that goes up and then the lot. that
No, I
goes
get
up.
that, but I
So
get what they're
everyone's got
saying.
this skinny little neck.
Right,
Yeah.
so by
And
moving
that
that,
would be an
Right.
approval.
We've been struggling with that a lot.
Irregularities.
Yeah.
I'm not on the ZBA, I'm the
But the
planning
planning
board.
board
Okay.
approved for.
so I know like what the pier, what the pier,
Yeah.
the pier
Fell out of the window.
Yeah, I've read it, but we do have a solution for that by just lengthening the road, which would require
The lower
a
one.
road waiver, which would normalize these
Which
lots.
we don't, because Larry just said they
Right.
could go before the planning board for the radius.
So the top one, the only issue is you're gonna gain frontage by coming around, right?
Yes, we would achieve the frontage on this.
Well, what's the variance?
Yeah, we're,
Well,
The variance is-
because they're still on
Side
the
setback.
side.
This pre-existing non-conforming structure is
Okay,
within
so
10
let's
feet.
just make
But
this
you-
clear. You do not want to seek a variance. You have to prove a hardship under certain conditions that go with the land, and it has nothing to do where the dwelling is positioned.
So
So,
lot shape, case law supports lot shape having exactly that, is where the dwelling is positioned. Lot shape has, that falls under
Yeah, but-
lot shape.
but what's your hardship in the land? What's causing you to do that? Just because you want to divide up the lot and get more
No, I
houses on
mean,
the
well-
lot? That's not a hardship. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you know, That's for you to prove, and I'm just saying, if you didn't have to do a hardship and you could go and get the subdivision through the planning board and they could provide some waivers, then you'd be all the better. I think just the term variance is a high standard to provide, and so you guys need to make that argument in
Sure.
spades in order to get it approved. And people that come in and just say, like, I don't want to take down the house, well, people like to look at the house. Who cares? It's not, that has nothing to do with an argument for variance. I mean, I understand that you're.
Will provide the public benefit, and
Yeah,
That's not our shit.
but that's not
You
a
know,
standard for a variance.
Building nice houses, being guys that
Well,
stand
lot
up, doing great
so lot
stuff.
shape is the, lot shape is what we,
Understood.
is what we.
But I'm just, okay, so we're just trying to give you some
Sure.
guidance, and part of that lot shape could be, well, you know, don't jam so many other houses back there and give it even more, and then you can relieve the other. I don't know.
Well, that one can't be relieved, that side setback couldn't be relieved. By anything we do, so.
Other than to leave the lot intact.
If the lot wasn't intact, it would just be a
But that's
pre-existing.
that's your
it would be a
problem.
pre-existing
Then you gotta move the
non-conforming.
road, and then you're gonna lose the other house.
I know, it just makes
Correct,
it,
exactly
makes it
right,
a little bit-
and we have a concept showing just that too, where we can keep that, we could keep that lot conforming, we do
Did
the
you move
same,
the other house?
same number.
move this house? The problem is I'm not going to have control of that house. That'll be, someone who's gonna be, living there, another, one of
So
the
they're gonna,
owners.
it's their property, I mean, then don't they have to seek the variance if they're the property owners or assign rights?
Yes, we would seek it on their behalf. They would certainly have to sign the application. I mean, listen, I'm not here to argue variance, I'm
Doesn't
not a
the same
lawyer.
people own
Yeah.
both houses?
Different trusts, different
Beneficiaries,
beneficiaries.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and again, I'm not a lawyer, that's why I came here to see what your
Right.
sentiment was on it, and
What was developed or proposed down the street, further down past Black Duck?
You talking about the Piero, was it 105 High Road?
Well, no, not even that one, we haven't even seen that one, but the one farther way down by Black Duck, by,
Right.
who's our animal control officer?
Yeah, Carol LaRock, down by her.
I don't know, I haven't seen it either.
Because they had a long lot and they proposed, I think they only proposed 2 houses to get around a house, but they somehow did it.
Yeah, that was actually Adam, I believe.
So we haven't seen that. They didn't need a variance in order to do that. So
Understood.
what did they do there, is what I'm thinking. Only because we haven't seen it, that's why I don't know exactly what the planning board reviewed and approved.
Yeah.
So I think I'd go back to Martha and understand what the process through the planning board is first, and what the planning board can provide you in terms of.
They can't provide us with relief on this, on that has to.
She was the one who suggested you come here, Martha.
She suggests we find, she said that she would support our endeavor, with the zoning board. We should, they're an independent board, and, you'd have to obviously seek their relief. But, that being said.
So, the tough thing is, what you're saying may make sense aesthetically, but it doesn't necessarily make sense zoning-wise. And so, generally we lean towards the bylaws, if
Sure.
that gives you any direction.
Sure.
And I know you want to make an argument that shape does matter. I'm not sure it does, and I'm not going to comment either way right now, but
Well, you're kind of creating the hardship by changing the shape in a way,
yeah.
And that's your problem. I'm not arguing against it.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have legal counsel?
Not yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I'd start there,
Yeah.
especially if you're gonna go for a variance.
yeah.
Yeah.
Variance
Those
is a
are very
much,
tough
much
to get.
Yeah.
different,
No, I
much
understand.
higher standard to meet.
No, I think I've got the sentiment, and I appreciate your time,
Right.
and I really do.
We're not against it, we're just trying to give you an idea as to
No,
what you're gonna be up against.
No, understood.
No,
It would
for
just,
that.
it's a really tough, I don't really have the wherewithal the means to go through, a full set of, definitive subdivision plans, and then eventually get to zoning and make an argument, only to, not to have an indication of that, this is something we'd be open-minded, so I can't, I wouldn't be able to proceed under that syntax, so, but, I know I do appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thanks for
Good
coming
luck.
before us.
Yeah, thank you for coming by.
Any other business? I have to go home and get my papers.
Do we have any other, okay, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.